Today we're going to finish up our discussion of our 4 basic operations on integers with multiplication and division. So kind of like we did in the previous section, we're going to kind of work through a couple of examples to come up with a set of general rules that we're going to use for multiplication. Right, so looking at our first example here, right, we're going to take a positive number times a negative number. We're going to rewrite our multiplication. And then once we rewrite our multiplication, we're going to evaluate our problem. Right, so we're looking for the product of 2 times negative 5. Right, well, we know 2 times 5 is 10. So we should expect our answer to either be positive 10 or negative 10. Right, our multiplication facts aren't going to change. So we just want to work through and decide, well, what does this mean? Right, multiplication itself means repeated addition. Right, so 2 times negative 5 means we're really taking negative 5 twice. So we're taking negative 5 plus negative 5. Right? Now thinking about what we saw in the previous sections, right, we talked about adding or subtracting numbers that have either same or different signs. Well, in this case, both of these numbers are negative. Right? So when we add 2 negative numbers, right, we add our numbers and we keep our common sign, which is a negative sign in the answer. Okay, so negative 5 plus negative 5 gives us a negative 10. Right, so that means that 2 times negative 5 equals negative 10. So what our result is and how we can kind of generalize this is that if we have one positive number times one negative number, right, and it doesn't matter which one comes first, we could easily reverse these two, right, as far as order goes, because multiplication, we said in a previous section, was commutative, so order doesn't matter. Right? So looking at these, if we have one positive number and one negative number, right, a positive number times a negative number is going to give us a negative number. All right, so now let's look at the second example. Right, so it looks very, very similar. The only difference is here we put a negative sign in front of our 2 as well. Right, so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to rewrite this. So this negative 2 times negative 5 means, right, that negative we're actually going to pull out front. So I'm going to pull a negative 1 out front. And then inside I'm going to write 2 times negative 5. Right, because multiplying something by negative 1 or putting a negative out there as an opposite, right, it all means the same thing. I've just removed that negative sign from out there and pulled it out front. Right, if you don't want to write that 1 out there, you don't have to. Right, if it seems a little more clear to you this way, we can just put that negative sign that's outside of our 2 times negative 5 that's in there. Right, then what this means is we're going to have a negative out front, and this 2 times negative 5, right, is a negative 10 from our previous problem. So we have one negative out front and one negative inside. Right, and then again, going back to our previous sections, negative times negative, or the opposite of a negative, turns into a positive. So if we have a negative number times a negative number, then we are going to get a positive number for our result. So what we're going to do is we're going to generalize this, right, into a nice, easy rule that we can use for both multiplication and division. This is actually the same rule that we saw when we were looking at opposites before. The result is going to be a positive result if we have an even number of negative signs. The result is going to be a negative result if there is an odd number of negative signs. Right? So I sometimes refer to this as our even-odd rule. So our even-odd rule works for our opposites, and our even-odd rule also works for multiplication and division.